or police sirens going past or whatever, then probably best not to. But okay, so we're about there, I think, aren't we? Okay, so let's get cracking. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. But my name is Steve Mead from Crux Careers and Agency Mentors. You're very welcome to today's webinar, which is all around, should I consider the self-employed model? There's been lots of chat recently, lots of webinars, lots of people discussing the self-employed model, the different variants that are out there. And what we want to do today is really give those that are considering maybe going down this route the option of, or not the option, but some ideas and insights into, you know, how these guys who I'm sat with today basically went about taking the first steps into going down the self-employed route and how that's developed for them over the years. So I've got a great panel today. I'm going to go around my screen and just introduce you all. So I've got Steve Wayne from Benjamin Stevens up in Northwest London. Steve has built a business from a traditional estate agency in the last 2 years to now have somewhere in the region of about 40 brokers working for him. Steve, you're very welcome.
Thanks.
Hi there. I've got Ian Dobrin, industry expert, formerly worked with a number, Connells, I believe, Ian, and a number of other, had his own recruitment company as well. So looking for some advice from Ian today. Ian, you're very welcome. David Oakin. David is a compliance and tax expert. He's going to give us any guidance we might need from the compliance and legal side. Mark Meyer, who I work with on a regular basis and delighted to do so. Mark has a fantastic business down on the south coast, Myers Estates, and Mark has just basically launched his franchise operation throughout the UK. So obviously looking for people to join him, as also is Nick Neal. Nick is the MD of UMove. He's been the MD for, I believe, for the last 5 or 6 years, Nick. Prior to that,
mid-2017.
Yeah, was a franchisee with a business up in North Yorkshire, and Nick has extremely successfully taken that business on. We've then got Ian Macbeth. Ian, you're very welcome. Ian, I've known for a number of years, was a residential sales manager, sales director, should I say, of Prospect Estate Agents, who are based in and around the Reading area. Ian took the decision over a year ago to go do his own consultancy. He has now started his own business, Avocado Property, alongside your business partner, Ian. His name escapes me. I do apologise.
Mike Robson.
That's right. And David Giles. David, delighted that David's joined us today. David joined Mark Meyer's team at Myers Estates. He is the director of his own franchise down on the south coast. David is going to give us some insight into how that decision was taken and basically how it got up and running and what it was like in those first 3 to 6 months. So really, for anybody who's considering going down this route, or any business that's looking to go down this route, hopefully we'll be able to give you all the answers to all the questions today. I'm going to start off with Nick. Just bear with me 1 second. So Nick, one thing that I've discussed with a lot of people is definitely a mindset issue when it comes to self-employment in the sector. Do you think people are afraid to take the plunge and going down the self-employed route, and should they be? Should they be afraid?
Yeah, I think people are certainly sometimes afraid to take the plunge, and I'll probably count myself among those numbers. So for many years, you go from one job to the next, and you have this kind of comfort blanket of security around you, or perceived comfort blanket, but then you find things change, and you get the option to be made redundant once or twice, or 3 times in my case. So you never actually fully in control of your own destiny, essentially. So you do have to, at some point, ask yourself the question, is it right for you in terms of your family situation, your earning situation, and both your kind of self-esteem and you know, your kind of self-evaluation as to the what if? Because you could find yourself at the end of your working life, being retirement, and think, well, I never actually worked for myself, and that's something I regret. And certainly for me, that was a motivator to work for myself. It was a combination of those things of one.
Okay, wonderful. Guys, anybody else got any comments on that?
at the end of the day, I don't think. I mean,
Sorry, Nick, I interrupted you there.
no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Ian,
all right.
Ian.
Yeah, I think that people are in two camps. I spent 14 years as an estate agent, had area manager, 7 offices, 40 staff for Bairstow Ebbsfleet in Essex, so part of the original Countrywide. I set up my own company. I just wanted to be self-employed. I just wanted to be in control, even in those days. So in '93, I set up a recruitment company and ran that for 18 years and was the boss. Went through some difficult years after that and joined Connells as a recruitment. I was employed for 6.5 years, which was an amazing experience after being self-employed for so long.
Oh, but,
I think it's in your DNA. I think it's in your DNA. Some people, they want to be in control. They want to do it themselves. They want to be creative. And other people just like being part of something, being part of a big company, being told what to do and being given targets. I think what really is exciting is suddenly there's now 4 or 5 different choices for people, not just employed or self-employed. There's franchising, there's self-employed part of a network. You can go totally alone. I think that's, for me, there's 4 or 5 different choices now suddenly, which is giving different people different opportunities.
Sure. Okay. Ian, Macbeth? Steve, I'll come to you in a second.
I think for the industry, there's 50-odd thousand estate agents employed, and I think for the industry, it's just not the norm yet. That's the main thing, and I think what I'm trying to get across is it needs to be a step on the ladder. You start as a trainee, you go to neg, you go to valuer, you go to manager. And I think self-employed has to be an option and a step on the ladder for the right people. Some people are fantastic negs, but not great valuers. Some people will make a great self-employed agent. Some people won't. But I think it's not known as a step on the ladder. And that's the key thing that I think we want to try and get across today, is that it's an option for people. And I don't think you have to be this magic unicorn that some people talk about on videos. You have to be the world's best kind of entrepreneur. I think different types of people will fit in different types of brands. So it's important to work out and almost as the candidate or the potential self-employed person, almost interview the business, interview us to see which fits for you. But it's making it a step on the ladder so that people have that option. They have the ability to take it when it's right for them.
Good stuff. Okay, Mark, I'm going to come to you in a second. Steve, sorry.
So when I opened the business, I was only 22 and I was working for someone else. And my main point was, if I can do it for them, I can do it for myself. And, it's just purely about belief and going out there. And, at the end of the day, with our model, and obviously different models are different, but the guys who work with us are doing exactly the same as if they worked for us a 9 to 5 on a salary. It's just the way they get paid and that extra bit of freedom, and at the end of the day, someone can always give it a go for 8, 10, 12 weeks. Like with any job, if it's going to work for you fairly quickly. My advice to anyone is it's worth a gamble. Gamble on things you do, not things you don't do.
Yeah, it goes back to what Nick was saying. It's the unknown, isn't it? If you never do it, you'll never know. You will never ever know.
There's a 3-month window for someone to gamble. If someone's drowning and they can just see it's not for them, they can go and get themselves another job. With the great things about the franchises and all of these options of everyone here is, if it doesn't work, a lot of them you can get out of, rather than you've gone and got yourself a lease and you've gone and spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on databases and offices. You can dip your toe in and see how you get on with it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm involved with EXP. It's one of the reasons I'm in this call now. I've been over in the UK since October. And one thing that particularly appeals to me, as it is in the States, we've got people that have joined EXP that their expectation to fit in with their lifestyle is they only sell 1 property a month. And that works. And we've got people that want to build a massive business within EXP. I think that's the difference. When you work for some companies, obviously the targets are going to be really high and lots of pressure. But we've got people that will join us that 1 or 2 deals a month will give them a fantastic living, and they can fit in with their lifestyle. They can actually do another job as well. They can carry on doing something else. But we've got people that join us. So it's that flexibility suddenly that is quite new. Yeah. I'm sure the other models work very similar.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, I'm going to come to you anyway with the next question. So you probably want to, you might probably want to put your answer in with this. But you came from a background in London with, amongst others, Foxtons. What was your motivation in deciding to go down the self-employed route when you started out on the Myers estate journey?
Well, yeah, Steve, you're basically dovetailing in what I was going to say anyway, which is great. What Nick said, it's about regret, really. You've got one life, and I watched John Hunt forge a beautiful business, which he imagined and then created. And a bit like You Move, what David and Glenn created, which Nick joined, was a concept which was going to make things better. It's a bit like what Ian said, and it's to try and improve people's lives, to give people more options. And what I found was, as an agent, I was making people a lot of money, but I wasn't making much, and I didn't have much wiggle room in how and when I did things. And so I started my own business because I knew that there was a better way of doing it back in 2010. I mean, in fact, I nearly started it in 2007. But then I was a bit concerned that there was going to be a crash, so I didn't do it, which was good because there was.
You could have warned us.
Yeah, I held my powder and used some of it a few years later. So we started in 2011, and my job was to try and equalise some of the disparities between the Australian and the US model, because I just didn't like the fact that English agents were paid an average of, like, I don't know, 27 grand a year or 35, and over there were millionaires in agencies. And there were agents that were millionaires, not business owners. So you know, you've got one life. We could either sit there and moan about it outside the offices in the end of the day and locking up, or you could just do something about it. It's like Nick said. You know, Dave's an example of somebody who's looking to transform his income. I totally agree with Ian. You know, we're quite happy with people who want a lifestyle, but at the same time, our brand is centered around people who still want to be the leading agent in their location, and actually just take a smaller location and lead that. So you have to be a great agent if you work off the high street, I think. You just can't, because all of our businesses, we don't have any office-facing businesses at all. High street-facing businesses at all. So I just think it improves agency, improves income, improves flexibility, and then you can design your own life around exactly what you want. And if you've got the DNA, which is, I think, something Ian said earlier, if you've got the DNA to not be an order taker, then you know there's a whole array of choices right here in front of you. And I would do it because, you know, life travels so fast. You know, it's been nearly 10 years, and we've made thousands of mistakes that we can help people avoid. But you know, there just wouldn't have been a very good life compared to the one we've lived because we did this. And if we can help other people live a much better quality life, then, you know, this is a solution to that problem. And there's solutions to all sorts of different avenues in front of us here. And everybody deserves to shop in different places because as Ian in Red said, I think, you know, earlier, just before we started, there's events in your life, like babies being born and things that make you reset the way you think. And there's plenty of opportunity to make a change in your life. And here's some choice coming along now.
Yeah. Ian Macbeth, you had your hand up. You're going to say something.
Yeah, just carrying on from what Mark said there, I think with the triggers of different times in your life, but also as the economy changes, you know, we've just gone through a very difficult time. And I think a lot of high street agents kind of furloughed most staff and left the managers doing everything to keep the offices afloat. And they're the people, for me, that I think when you've got that ability to be better when you're busy, and when you've got that ability to find the business when maybe it's not there and take control and service clients correctly, they're the people that this is a perfect fit for. And they're the people that are on those commission levels that are potentially quite low, when they could be doing exactly what they're doing now in their offices, keeping their offices afloat, but they could be doing it for themselves, and they wouldn't have that 9 till 5 guidance that they've got to adhere to. And I think that, for me, is the key thing. I think it's got to be something that at a time in your life you realise you've got that option to go and do it. Why wouldn't you accept that challenge and take it on? Because, you know, fear is not something that we should kind of reject. Everyone rides a bike for the first time once. Everyone does a valuation for the first time once. You've just got to get ready, get over it, and you know it will benefit your life for learning it, really.
Sure. Nick, Steve, I'll come to you in a second.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to follow on actually from something Steve said earlier, and also Mark's alluded to there. And it's, you know, how long do you need to adjust to self-employment? So I think Steve was saying, you know, try it out for a couple of months, see if you like it. If it's not for you, do something else. But I would caution people for trying it over a short period. I think most self-employed businesses fail within 18 months. So successful for many years to come. So I think if you are going to go down the self-employed route, it should be for a period of time that allows you to kind of readjust and deal with the things that you will have not had to deal with as an employee, because running a business is quite different from being an employee, and you do have to readjust and relearn to deal with all of that stuff. And you know, a great example of that is that, you know, my brother ran a bakery for 10 years and then he bought it. He was doing exactly the same job in the same firm. Nothing about the environment changed, but it was a substantial change for him, having the responsibility of running a business and employing staff and all that stuff. And it does take a while for people to adjust out of the employee mindset into a self-employed mindset. And it's important that people go into that journey fully understanding that.
Yeah, Steve, I think there's a lot to be said for that, isn't there? I mean, I know I appreciate what you said about, you know, you've got the 2 to 3 month period, but
What I meant is within that time period, you'll know if you can feel that it's comfortable for you. If you're starting to get palpitations at night because you don't have a guaranteed basic, you know, you don't know until you take that jump. And what I would say to people is take that jump. You know, with a lot of the models, it's not, you're not getting stuck with it for life. You know, things are going to take 6, 8, 10 weeks. But as long as you can see some movement and you start believing yourself, then you can go forward. But some people are going to do it and just freak out. You know, we've had a lot of people who've joined, especially at the early days, and they've just realised very quickly that it's just not for them. But what I was going to say is, at the moment, we've got 2 high street branches which are established, so we leave as a side part of the business, which helps support the bigger, you know, the hub model. But we've been working, especially over lockdown, not being in the office full time, and you realise actually when you don't have that distraction of people in the office, that distraction of walk-ins, you can get so much more done, and you can almost slow down the way you work. And it's amazing. You know, I've got a couple of guys who are now back with us, and I've got them to work that way, and they're being so much more productive by not having to be in the office at 9 o'clock, not having to be there till 6:30. And that it's just not necessary. Estate agency you could probably do in 4 or 5 hours a day. You don't need to be stuck to that constraint of an office.
yeah, no, that's a fair comment. Mark, you wanted to come back?
I was actually going to ask David for his opinion as a franchisee, because what Nick said is very important. You know, in the franchise world, you're taking over the business and you're taking over the responsibility of being an agent, as well as, you know, you're on your own, you've got new systems. And I was just going to ask David how long it took him to, as a you know, franchisee within Myers, how long he took to turn the corner and get used to the new rhythms of the business.
Yeah, no, it does. It takes like 6-7 months to feel comfortable, I guess. But very early on, you realise actually you're just doing exactly the same job you was doing before. You get all these worries and that, you know, you're going to go into something and no one's going to instruct you. But actually, within the first week, we got an instruction, just following what we was taught. I mean, the biggest thing for me is when I started a corporate agent, I saw my manager's wages. And I was like, what the hell? But he's a senior manager. I was like, if I get to a senior manager and I'm on that. So straight away, the idea of this, like what Mark was saying about the Australians and how much money they get, that's what really made me go for this franchise, because it is limitless on what you can actually get. And going back to what Steve said about not having an office, you're so much more efficient being self-employed, managing your own time, and people coming in and not coming in, that you do just get so much more work done than a standard agency. So yeah, it was an easy transition, to be honest.
Cool. So bits of both, bits of what Nick said, bits of what Steve said as well. I think to be fair, it is like that, isn't it? There's just so many different options out there that you have to look and you know, look at what's best for you. I think, Ian, quickly before we move on to the next question.
I think also, even on this call, we've got different options and they open up different issues. You've got franchise options, which normally includes, and the guys will tell us, you know, whether it's 5-10 grand to even buy in the first place, that puts you under a lot of pressure straight away. I've been involved in 2 franchise businesses in the past, both in property related, one being Estates Direct and one being inventoryclerk.com, and I sold the licenses, franchises to those guys. The pressure straight away is completely different. With our model at EXP, there's no buy-in, and you don't have an area as well, territory. You can go anywhere you like. So
this is not all about EXP, Mr. Dobrin.
What I'm saying is that there's a difference. If we're talking about the pressure that people are under and the 3 to 6 months that Steve's saying it takes people, it definitely depends on the model you join how much pressure there is on. If
Agree-
you're buying in
agree.
first, there's more pressure than when you go to a business where they're saying, we don't want you to buy in. If it works, it works. Worst
Yeah.
case is 14 days notice. Not about EXP, I didn't mention
Yeah.
that again, but
Oh,
that's
sure.
literally, they are completely different models, and that gives
Yeah.
people different issues when it
Sure.
comes to
David, did you want to come back then?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, because you can in this model as well, you can just be self-employed, which Steve, you showed us, and it's something that I'm looking to get someone in who just can come in self-employed without paying a fee. I still think it's important to give that person the area, because one of my problems was I tried to boil the ocean and do stuff all over the place, and I don't think you can do that with a estate agency. But yeah, because so with this model, you can still just do self-employed without the buyer.
Yeah. Well, the idea, I mean, the discussion we had, sure. 1 second. The discussions we had, David, was around, you developing that business, that franchise. If you said you have 2, 3, 4 listers working for you in the next 5 or 10 years, then so be it. That doesn't mean they're involved specifically buying the franchise. They're working for you on a self-employed basis.
That's right. Yeah.
I really agree with what David was saying there. I really think it's important that people stick to an area, or at least have an area that they focus on. Obviously, if you've got a client you've been dealing with for years, you should go and deal with that client.
Yeah.
But I've had people in the past, I'll deal with this area and that area and that area. And you can end up just being a very busy fool. I think it's really important that people who look at the self-employed model don't try and get greedy with it. Focus on an area, be that local property expert, know your area, know your market. When you turn around to someone, I can do this, this and this, you can very easily become a busy fool and end up getting nowhere.
Okay. Nick, before we move on to the next question.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that. I mean, we've gone from an initial territory allocation back in the day of 50,000. We're now at 20,000 as standard. And actually what we advise people to do is market only 10,000. And if they focus on that kind of laser and they become the number one agent in that micro area and grow out from there. And I absolutely agree with Steve, because I did it myself when I started my franchise. I started going all over the place, and you just lose that concentration effect. So focusing on being the agent of choice in a micro area is absolutely
Steve, just to add that just a second, is that our franchises start off with a lower buy-in, because what Ian said about pressure, you can have a lower buy-in for a lower area. So we're all about market share in a small area. So you can dominate in a small area. So 1,000 houses we used to go in, and it's all about building market share.
8 to 10,000 houses is the right amount.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Okay, guys. Let's move on. Ian Macbeth. We were chatting the other day, and we were talking about the webinar, and some of what you said struck me specifically, and I quote you. In respect to the incredible agents who have left the industry over the last 10 years because they outgrew the departmentalised and figure-focused culture, a lot of these guys and girls would have jumped into self-employed model if there was more awareness and options around them at the time. So, do you think we're there yet? Is that awareness about? Because I don't think it is. Are we back to a mindset issue? Where do you think we are with that?
No, I don't think the awareness is there. I think it probably more is in some regions, more so than others. But definitely where I am, I don't think the awareness is there. And I think as people kind of passively debate which type of option is best for them, even on this panel, it's the key thing for me is the client. We talk a lot about the agent, but for the client has to experience a better service than what they're experiencing at the moment. And that quote that you mentioned there about kind of departments, that's the problem with the high street model, is a client will talk to a valuer. They don't often talk to them again. They get passed to a neg. They get passed to after sales. The manager negs the file. It's not an experience that's arranged around the consumer. Whereas this kind of bespoke model, where the guys are talking about 5, 10, 8,000 people that you're kind of looking after, that is where you can get involved in the community. And that's where you can be part of your local personal brand, which that for me is so important, that you are part of that community. And it's one person dealing with it from start to finish. I think it's the only way that the industry gets saved. And if we look at kind of the local butcher example, they're now the pride and joy of their community for what they've done throughout lockdown. And it's not about mass volume, and it's not about that kind of departments anymore. People want a bespoke service, and the client is going to get that from a self-employed agent. They can't get that in the same way from a high street. I don't care what the argument is, you can't. Because one person from start to finish builds a relationship, and it listens to the needs, the empathy, and the community then feel that as well.
Yeah.
So for me, that's
no.
the important of the bespoke element of things.
No, I agree. Steve?
I will contradict. We are still a high street agent, and our hub model bounces off the high street. And our guys have always worked the 360. You know, I think I 100% agree with you, but it's not a high street, non-high street thing. The whole idea of a valuer, a senior neg, and that whole 19 people deal with sales is ridiculous. And also, the biggest problem is you go out and you sell a house for £1 million at 1.5%, and as a negotiator, you earn 1,500 quid. Your whole body just drops, and you just think, how have I worked this hard for that little money? And one of the reasons we did this model is estate agents aren't good enough because there's no reason for people to do estate agency because you can't earn enough money. Whereas all of us here are changing that. And that's the thing, that's what needs to get out there. And what I found with everyone, you know, who are doing this model is we're all in it together. If we can promote this model as a better way of working and bringing better people into the industry and keeping better people in the industry becomes better. We all put our fees up and everyone wins.
Sure. Mark?
Yeah, Steve's spot on. It doesn't, high street and off high street is not, he's right. You know, it's not that important. And it's not to knock what Ian said, because Ian is also right. It's all about the individual journey through the property world for the client. So I was on a meeting with John McGrath from Australia this morning with Stephen Brown through Stephen Brown's SJB Brown consultant page today. And the point made by him is how far the Australians have come in servicing their clients as individuals. So you've got these guys like Josh Tesselin, who are just huge brands and to themselves, and Lisa Novak. Some of these people don't even have a CRM because they just use this phone as their CRM, and that's it. And because they're so well connected in their societies, some of them have got 70% market share, and they're the go-to person. They support all the surf stuff. They do everything. And they're writing $3 or $4 million a year. So they're making £1 million a year on their agency business. And through the last, say, 15 years, at least, if not 20, in English estate agency, the corporates have just cleaned out all the talent and just ironed out all of the money, just taken it all to the top. And agencies just being turned into a two-dimensional shadow of what it should be, because it's just been bought up by Countrywide with 4 or 5 or 6 shops in the high street. So the high street agent has got a contamination about it because it's just full of, bank-owned and corporate-owned agencies that actually put the customer at the very least of their concerns. And unfortunately, the high street have this sort of stamp of, horror about it. If you look at 20 high streets, they pretty much have exactly the same shops in them. So therefore, we have to reinvent ourselves on these screens and through those portals. I see a lot of people putting a hand up. So, but yeah. I'm definitely type of, with these guys, we have to turn agency into the great thing it actually is, because it's one of the best lines of work that you can get, and you shouldn't be paid 25 grand a year when you're sorting people's lives out day in, day out, 10 hours a day. That's just not right.
Sure. Okay, Nick, then Steve, then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, and I think the comments there are very good, because I've spoken to some fantastic agents who've worked in high street models, and they're frustrated because the model works against their ability to deliver great service. They're capable of delivering great service, they want to do, and these new hybrid models that we're all representing allow that really close customer service and customer contact, to allow the inherent skills many agents have to really flourish. But the problem is they feel frustrated and they get because the model that's being deployed in the traditional sort of high street world doesn't allow for people to deliver and doesn't allow for customers to experience the high level of service that we're all capable of delivering. Sure.
Steve?
I think one of the things as well is when you're in this model and you're looking after the property from beginning to end, you can market it better. You can do your open houses like the Americans do. Really take your time to make sure that you give all that energy to that property to do what our job is, which is to get the best price for our client. When you're in an office, you're all fighting for the phones. I say to my guys sometimes in our standard office, like, you are allowed to leave the office. People are almost scared in a traditional estate agency to leave the office, because if they leave the office, they're going to get someone else might steal their deal. Where in this, you've got control of the property. So I don't know about how others work, but for us, if you go and list that property, all the leads come to you, all the phone call leads come to you. So you can take a bit more time really showcasing that property like it should. And then the end result is the client gets a better outcome, which is at the end of the day what everyone wants.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, listen, I'm going to move on to David. David Oaken, you've been very patient. I appreciate that, mate. I'm just going to ask you actually about your own sort of journey. I hate that phrase, but we'll use it. So, looking at your own situation back in 2007, you had a great job with a very reputable company, Green & Co. in North London. How much of a strain was it for you to effectively put all that behind you and start a business that, to be fair, was relatively speculative back then?
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to what you guys have been saying. It's been really interesting. I spent 20 years in the high street, one of the 4 directors at Green & Co. And I think when you work in a high street for that long, your mindset is high street employed estate agent. We had the idea very simply, I think Mark Myers brought it up earlier, about the Australian model, the American model, this pure self-employed model. They call it realtors over there. And we wanted to try and look at creating something different. And I think, in answer to your question, Steve, my mindset didn't take very long to change, because I think I had already bought into the idea of having my own business, working for myself and creating my own income. But yeah, look, I think for a lot of the people that we work with, because we work, with people on this screen and with people outside of this screen, and trying to transition people from employed to self-employed. But I think one of the guys on the panel brought it up earlier, the biggest obstacle for most people is the change in the mindset. And the human brain is a very strong thing. And I think once people understand or get the help they need to make that transition into a self-employed model, it actually falls into place naturally.
Yeah. So guys, who gets, in looking at from a recruitment point of view, Steve, maybe you could help us with this, because you've obviously been very successful in getting people on board in the last 2 years. That, how often does the question of compliance and legality and that sort of thing come up?
Oh, I've got an investor who's a solicitor, so he takes care of that side of things, so he makes sure for all of that. But to be honest, it's not something that they ask a lot of. Most people presume it's been organised and it's all sorted. But when someone joins, we go through and explain how to do things and how to do things. But it can be a real minefield.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, David, where TMS comes in. It is effectively a turnkey solution to moving over to a self-employed model, both for a business and an individual.
Yeah, we spent 2 years researching it and getting it right. I think the biggest thing that we found, and Stephen, you just touched on it, is what a lot of companies do now is they start the process off. They make people self-employed, they run it, but then they don't look at what happens if there is a challenge from the revenue, if all the compliance triggers all hit. So we spent 2 years creating our contract to make sure that it was pre-approved by the revenue. We built it for the property sector, funnily enough, because I was in property. And we're now in about 8 different sectors, but compliance really for us and all the tax laws and employment laws is the key to getting this right. We've been into many companies that have run self-employed models for years, and we brought in our legal team and we pulled it apart, because a lot of the time it looks great on the surface, but it's the underlying detail that has to be met for it to work.
Yeah. Okay. Let's, I tell you what, we're time's flashing by here. I've got a number of questions coming in from people. David Giles, I've got a question which Dee Queeley sent in. Dee from Queeley's down in Sittingbourne. He wanted to ask you how motivated, entrepreneurial you feel in relative to his colleagues that you worked with in the employed industry. How much more motivated and entrepreneurial do you feel once you actually made the decision to make the move?
Yeah. So once I made the move, how does it feel to have your own business? Yeah. Honestly, having your own, you get guidelines with Mark to help you get on your way, but having everything in your own control, it's just amazing. So within 2 years, I managed 2 offices at a corporate level, and you get building a reputation. It's what the guys were saying earlier, being a personal touch, and then suddenly you get moved 10 miles down the road and doing a different patch. So the fact that people keep coming back to you, you're in control of where you want to put your money. and how you source it, yeah, it's a no-brainer. I could never go back to working for someone, put it that way.
Yeah. I think Dee's main concern is, are people going to be motivated enough? If they're self-employed, if they're not on the books, if they're not on a basic salary,
are they going to be? Yeah, because of the money. It's what Steve said earlier about, you know, if you sell 1.5 million property and you're getting £1,500, you're kind of like, here we go. But once you see the book start turning, and you're still doing the same job. In fact, you're more efficient than what you're doing. So you don't have to be motivated. I spoke to a lot of managers when I was working for the corporate, and a lot of them were like, I wish I did it 5 years ago. I wish I started my own business 8 years ago. But they always didn't, because they was worried about how much money you needed behind you. But by going self-employed, you can do it with little or no cost, all depending on what one you take up. So there's a lot of people in the corporate industry that just were gutted that they didn't do it and regretted that they didn't take the leap before.
All right, so I think that goes back to what Nick was saying earlier. Nick, you wanted to come in? Nick?
Yeah, I was just saying, that question has brought a smile to my face. Yeah, as that one. So, you know, I remember, you know, when I worked for a corporate with big bonuses and all this sort of stuff, you know, everything's quite clinical, and you go through a process to get a result, which is fine. But when you work for yourself, you know, the initial prize might be quite smaller, but it's more emotional and it's so exciting. And, you know, that kind of position of going out there and doing it for yourself is just absolutely fascinating. And I would absolutely recommend everybody does it for sure.
Sure. Okay. So I've got a question from Miles White. Do you need deep pockets to even consider the self-employed option in Dublin?
Comes back to my original point. I think it depends what model you look at. And we talk to people, we make sure that they've got 2, 3, 4 months money. They realise how long it's going to take. When I first got involved, I was talking to another company before I joined EXP, teamed up with EXP. And I felt that they weren't making it clear. They weren't making it clear what you needed to do. I think it's really important. I think everyone will agree that when you talk to someone, you qualify them, you make sure it's right for them, you make sure they can afford it. I think that's the biggest thing, just to make sure people know what they're getting into. And again, it gets down to, you know, how much money they've got behind them in the first place.
Okay. So, Steve, go on before I move on to the next one.
Yeah, look, with the money, obviously it's all different, but just, I think people always have to remember it's not about money. I got a text message from a friend who actually passed someone over to us, and he messaged me yesterday saying, you've changed his life. You know, he's actually fallen in love with the job again. He actually feels he's got a purpose and getting up in the morning. And that's the difference, is people are also, it's a mindset thing. You know, people, yes, money is brilliant, but you know, if you've got kids, be able to go and pick your kids up early is amazing without having to beg your boss. You know, to be able to go and spend that special time, watch them go and play football. There's more to it. And you look at the American model, and they seem to have such a better quality of life. And it's also, you know, you've got to look at the quality of life it brings as well.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. A couple of people have asked, what percentage of the overall market do you predict will be hub, boutique, hybrid agents in 5 years' time?
100%.
100%. Really? Nick, what do you think?
I think it'll be much more substantial. If you think about any market, you know, the market's polarised into premium and budget, and customers operate in both markets. You know, the middle ground, the middle market for any product or service is gone. So, you know, you might go to Primark one day to get a t-shirt or a pair of jeans, but you'll also go to a boutique shop and get some more expensive clothes. Same with holidays. You get budget flights, you get premium holidays. Same with cars. You know, all consumers now operate in both a budget and a premium space.
Yeah, true. Ian Macbeth?
Yeah, I agree with that.
The same is true of agents.
I think the marketplace will be dominated, whether it's employed, internet agent, self-employed, it'll be dominated by the agents that adapt to the way the consumer wants to receive that service. And that's what's changed completely different. I think estate agency was very much market share, volume, figures, turnover. That's not what the client wants. The client wants that bespoke service, and they want their property to be marketed, much like Steve said, in the way that modern day marketing should be. So I think the agencies that will be able to dominate the market over the coming years are the ones that have adapted with the way things are. And, you know, in lockdown, to give you an example, we've booked not 95% of our valuations through Facebook Messenger. Not a telephone call. So you have to be able to adapt with the way that the market's going and the way that the client wants to receive that service, and they'll be the people that will dominate. And completely agree on the lifestyle aspect of things. If you've got your daughter in an assembly on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock, you don't want to book a day's holiday. You just want to go and do it. That's your biggest priority that week. And that's what this model gives you. It gives you the ability to take back control of your own life and your own diary, really.
Yeah, true. Mark?
Well, I just think, I just think that the corporate agents won't withstand. So to answer the question about how much market share, the corporate agents won't be able to withstand the type of service levels that we deliver. And so the customers will go, like Nick said, to the place where they feel that they're going to get the best results. And that'll be the deciding point about how much market share this type of model gets. It just depends how good we are. And if the people that the self-employed agents work for are really, really good, then they'll just become very strong, because it's less money to run. It's not very much money to get in, and the outcome, for everyone, the client and for the individuals, is huge. So for people like myself, I'm here to serve David. I'm not David's boss. I'm only here to serve David's success, and the more successful he gets, the better it feels for me. So I've got clients that I'm influencing outside, and David's travel and his bespoke services and everything he does is creating a huge reputation in his area. And I just love the fact that I can support David and his family and his success through just simple models. And because if you go to Australia, which I've done, and you've researched, go to America and actually go there and see what people do and research it, we've got so far to go that I think in 5 years, who knows how much, but in 10 years, if there's a corporate left, I'll be very surprised indeed, to be quite honest. And that gives us a lot of mileage ahead of us.
Good, lovely. Ian Dobbin?
A couple of points. Obviously, I've got a bit of an advantage because we've got 28,000 agents already in America. So I agree totally with that we are going to move that way. The other thing is I've been speaking to hundreds of agents since October, and I don't think I've had one conversation with one agent that has told me that they've found a fantastic shop on the high street that they're going to take on. So I'd like to close. I don't think people are looking at that anymore, and that is going to lead to potentially 50% of the business being self-employed, working from home, hubs, in about 2 years' time.
Cool, thanks. Okay, just moving on quickly. Let's get through these questions. So, from the audience, is this too high a risk to consider in this economic crisis? Steve Wayne?
No, completely the opposite. The last 10 weeks has proven to people they can work from home. It's shown them a different lifestyle, and actually, completely opposite. What's happened over the last 10 weeks has actually turned it the other way. I think we've almost sped up the industry for 2 years because of what's happened.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Well done. What is better for tax purposes, self-employed model or a limited company? David Arkin.
Definitely depends on individual situations. We put most of our people through our clients as a self-employed model first of all, let them get used to the idea of being self-employed and how that works. And then depending on individual situation and especially earnings, we look at the limited company route, but it does depend on individual situations.
Sure, okay. So, and just about lead generation, what's the best business generation method in the self-employed model? David Giles, I'll come to you in a second, Ian.
Yeah, no, so it's just being referrals, to be honest. The most of my leads come from recommendations and referrals now. So it's just getting out there, because you're self-employed, because you're dealing with it, you're dealing with a lot of the viewings, you're dealing with the potential vendors. In my first few weeks, I was getting people I was viewing with other agents, recommending their friends to come with me. So definitely, I get most of my leads from recommendations and referrals.
Cool.
From customers.
Thanks, mate. Ian, Mabeth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar to David in that I'm doing this. I'm not just creating a licensing business. I'm doing it in an area myself right now. I'm doing valuations, talking to clients, and without giving the full blueprint away, the honest view is it's about your personal brand and how skilled you are in marketing. But social media is a massive way of creating the right content to get out to people very quickly. We haven't dropped a leaflet, we haven't done a single letter, and obviously not knocked on the door's house because of lockdown. Everything that we've done has been around your personal brand, video content and marketing. So if you understand how the different campaigns work and how funnels work and how retargeting works, then that is how you can quickly make that. And alongside that, you have your supporter group of referrals, like David said, you know, your family, your friends, your contacts, they're your referrals and your quick wins. But there's a blueprint out there that if you follow it, it's the easiest way to get loads of business in very, very quickly. But you have to be honest, and you have to be putting out exactly what you believe out there. You can't be fake. And be different to how the classic high street has always operated, or the classic estate agent has always operated, I should say, because they're not trusted, they're not liked. You have to be opposite to that, hence wearing a pink hoodie, not a suit.
And very nice pink hoodie it is too. Nick, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, marketing, which people cut through the kind of complexity of Facebook marketing, PPC, Google AdWords, you know, various other marketing channels, which if you're running your own business, you haven't really got time to really learn, understand and master. But as David said before, the job of the successful agent is to be on the ground winning referral business, absolutely for sure. But then you need the mechanics of a sort of more broad marketing program, which probably what Ian was alluding to, and very similar to the kind of thing we do as well.
Wonderful. Steve?
You know, for me, still, I'm still quite old school. You know, the nice thing for us is when people come and join us, we try and get them to join near the offices and almost push our circle out. So people for us have got a database of a network of people. You know, you've got 17 years of a business, so it's about everything. So they've got almost the corporateness of us. Plus, then they go out, they do the Facebook, they do the networking, and there's a lot of cross passing over business as we grow. Someone in North West London passes something to South London and vice versa. So, you know, you've got to use a little bit of everything. And I've always said that to people. Don't rely on one medium. You've got to be using your network, but also everything that you've got.
Cool. Okay. So let me ask you this, guys. In a recent interview that Christopher Watkins did with Simon Shinerock, Simon, who I think we all know is a very well-respected businessman, Simon was insistent that the self-employed model couldn't successfully work in the UK, and I had quite an argument with him on LinkedIn about it. Why do you think Simon thinks that way, and other people in his camp think that way? Why do you think that is? Ian Dobrin?
I think that there's a big fear, especially from the large corporate world. There's going to be that there is this massive change, massive opportunity. And I think a lot of it's down to that. It's fear-mongering. Suddenly, UK is always 10 years behind the States in many ways. The estate agency is normally 10 years behind that. And we've suddenly caught up. And I think that's my personal view on it. That it threatens lots of people. It gives lots of individuals a chance to be successful. And that goes against the current model of employer-employee.
Sure. Steve?
Yeah, I've seen loads of things on Facebook about anti-self-employed, but I don't think they realise, you know, you give someone a little bit of freedom, you give someone authority to control their own destiny, and people step up to the challenge. You know, there's some amazing people in our industry who just get lost in a manager's role. People end up being managers for 10, 12, 15 years, and the people below them get stuck as well. You know, we're giving people the opportunity to change their lives and have a better life, and I don't think people like that, because in the nicest way, the corporates will never be able to offer the love and support us lot can.
Sure. Nick?
Yeah, well, you know, we've got over 100 franchisees and operating multiple territories, and we've been going because they're earning more money than they have before. So clearly it works. So whoever's saying it doesn't hasn't really done the research and had a look at what is out there and how it's performing.
Sure. I mean, contrary to what Simon Shinerock thinks, I mean, Peter Knight, again, in an interview with Christopher, basically said if he was to have his time over again, that he would look to the self-employed option. And he stated it was more about getting the right people, irrespective of age, background.
Mm-hmm.
Many of your franchisees, Nick, have come from non-agency backgrounds. Does that have its advantages?
It does. They bring a much higher customer service focus with them, which is great, and that's filtered through our entire network. They don't start as quickly and as effectively experienced agents, but in a reasonably short space of time, they get to be as good, if not better, than experienced agents. So having that kind of pure agency background can be very, some risks, but as people have said before, they kind of get stuck in that high street way of doing things, which isn't always the most advantageous thing for them. So it is about the individual, not necessarily their previous experience.
Sure. Mark, you've got a comment on that?
Yeah, well, we started up in our garage. Me and my wife were the first 24/7 hybrid agent in the UK, and our network and ourselves have instructed over £1 billion of property since then. So, and we haven't even really tried. We never tried to break the UK stage with little babies at home, and we knew this as my little boys just started going to school, so we decided to open it out. Probably about a year ago, we started stepping towards this, and David has always done well. We just kept it close and local because it was our biggest driver is not money. It's influencing people in a positive way, whether it be a client or whether it be an entrepreneurial guy like David. So since then, we've had 100% success rate in everything. And actually, these guys want to do well. Every single person that you'll come across, whether they're employed or self-employed, they all want to do well. As long as you give them the tools and the right direction, they will do well doing this. It's hard to fail. To be quite honest, it is very hard to fail because the overheads are so low, and which means the profit's so high. So our fees are higher than most of our competing agents, and we're off the high street, which means that the margin for error is huge, which means they've got much more chance of success than a typical agent, in my opinion. I really believe that.
Sure. Okay, let's. We're getting towards the end of our time. Let's just, David Giles, I'm going to let you finish off, because obviously the idea of this webinar was to, get it out there to the people that are considering doing basically what you did 3 years ago. What advice would you? What advice would you give to anyone considering doing this right now?
First of all, just do it. Just get on and do it, because you're just going to do the same thing that you're doing, but with a better toolkit. When you do go do it, make sure you look for the right company that's putting out the right brand. Care about what you do, and keep your patch tight. Don't try to boil the ocean. And just care and just be honest. We started off, and this year I thought I was going to do like 350. Then we started a projection of doing like 550, just by changing what we did and just caring a bit more. Social media, as Ian said earlier, is fantastic as well to go through it. But the most important thing is just to get involved and not to be scared about doing it.
Cool. All right, guys, I'm going to go around you. One sentence, right? Considering going self-employed. Steve Wayne.
Speak to everyone. Do your research and do what feels right in your gut.
Ian Dobrin.
I can't disagree with what Steve just said. I think there's so many choices out there. Make sure you look at them all.
Sure. Nick Neal.
Yeah, I would definitely do it. Don't research yourself into no decision, but make the decision to do it. Do some research and go for it.
Mark.
Yeah, use the right people to go with.
Good stuff. David, I know it's not your patch, but you got any advice for those people looking at going self-employed?
Yeah, I think people need to understand it's much easier than they think it is. And it's all about, as a couple of the guys said, getting the right arm put around you and having the help you need to make that transition.
Sure. Okay. And Ian?
It is the only way you can truly be the best version of yourself as an estate agent.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Guys, I really appreciate all of your input. Thanks for those of you that have joined. The webinar is obviously going to be available, and I will send it out to those of you who said you can't make it today. I will get it sent out. Obviously, we at Crux Careers, we work with all these guys that you see on the screen. We can facilitate introductions, but believe me, you will not make a wrong decision in looking at going down this route. And now probably is as good a time to do it as any. A lot of you have got mortgage holidays. A lot of you have got less financial commitments for the next 3 months or so. Just get out there, and as Dave Giles says, and living proof, and all the guys are living proof. Really, they've all been there at some stage. They've all started and been very, very successful. Why not join those ranks? Thanks for everyone for joining. Thanks for spending the time. See you all soon. Cheers, guys. All the best.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.